One final time. Well, over the past few weeks, we've been catching up with members of the state Senate's 2011 freshman class. And we just heard from Gustavo Rivera, who touted my next guest's success on November 2nd as one of the Democrats' most important general election victories. Tony Avella is a former New York City councilman and a 2009 mayoral candidate. He narrowly defeated a 38-year state Senate veteran, Frank Padovan, on election night, and that was only one of two seats that the Democrats were able to wrest from the Republicans' hands. Senator-elect, nice to see you.
Always a pleasure.
That was a big win for you.
Absolutely. And it wasn't narrowly. It was 3,000 votes on election night, but when they recalibrated the machines, the scanners, it was over a 5,000 vote lead.
Well, that was actually what caused Frank Padovan to finally concede, because initially, like so many of these races, the person, both Democrats and Republicans, we should say, the person who looked like the loser did not concede, in part because of those new machines and nobody knew what to expect.
And the scanners and the paper ballots and everything. Yeah.
So he conceded on the 8th, which was 6 days later.
The day after they recalibrated the scanners, and we found out the vote lead had increased to 5,000 votes.
You know, the thing about the recalibration of scanners, though, I mean, what is your position on this recount situation? I mean, do you believe that it should just go as long as necessary? Because again, the race that we're talking about with you, your colleague Jim Gennaro on the council, came very close to ousting Frank Padovan, and that dragged into
votes.
Dragged into February.
Yeah. No, I think every vote should be counted. Every vote should count. So no matter what time it takes, we should do it.
So even if Andrew Cuomo says, I would like this to be settled by the end of December so I could start fresh in January and get my agenda through, you say
Well, I
no.
think we can do both. I think we can have get done by January if they put on extra people, if they work continuously over the weekends and at night. I think it can be done. And I think it's important that everybody who votes knows that their vote actually counted, no matter who they voted for. I think that's the fundamental, aspect of democracy. Your vote counts.
So what changed things for you in this race? Because as we just mentioned, the last time around, Gennaro came very, very close. This is actually a strange district because it's New York City and everybody considers it very liberal, but 38 years for Frank Padovan, and he was a fairly conservative-ish guy. The Republicans say it was Carl Palladino, and that you don't agree.
No, I don't agree. But you have to understand, first of all, this district was gerrymandered by the Republicans like 20 years ago. It was specifically created to re-elect Frank Padovan time and time again. Key Democratic strongholds were actually taken out of this district. So it's actually a poster child for independent redistricting commission. I think one of the major factors was when Jim Gennaro ran, his council district represented only 7% of the largest Senate district, whereas my old council district was almost half of the Senate district. So that gave me a big boost, not only in name recognition, but popularity. And I think this time around, we concentrated on the issues. We got out there with his very poor immigration record. We got out there with the fact that his very extreme women's record. I mean, very anti-women, beyond just going the fact that he was anti-choice. He voted against a lot of key women's legislation. And I think when we got those issues out, and I went door to door, I knocked on over 7,000 doors, I think all of those factors coming together, and the fact that he was there for 38 years, made a difference.
So what changes in sort of the broad sense? I mean, obviously it changes for your district, but overall for the Senate chamber, what do you think is going to be changing with the advent of you coming in, particularly from an upstate point of view? Because, for our viewers, there's a concern that if the Republicans do not take the majority, that upstate's voice gets drowned out.
Well, that's not going to be the case with me. I mean, first of all, I think there's a much more progressive agenda that I'll bring than Frank Padovan had. But my district is like upstate New York. I mean, there are people that are out of work.
I've been to your district. Yeah. It is not like upstate New York. I'm sorry.
People are concerned about property tax.
Sure.
My district is. And I recognize the fact that we need to do more to help upstate. And I think we can balance downstate and upstate. And I'm looking forward to doing that.
But do you believe you're going to be able to do that if, in fact, you end up in the minority, which probably is not exactly what you bargained for?
It's absolutely not what I thought would happen.
Exactly.
But I think, it's not going to be a supermajority for the Republicans if they take the majority. If the best case scenario for the Democrats is 31-31, with the lieutenant governor, breaking the tie, it's going to be democracy with a small d. People are going to have to get along with each other. They're going to have to work together to get things accomplished. and I'm looking forward to that challenge.
But do you think actually, I've actually been asking all of the incoming freshmen this question, how aggressive will you be if the split that we've seen, 32-30, over the past 2 years has enabled 1 or 2 senators, in some case just one, Bill Stokowski comes to mind, he held up everything for UB 2020, which is a SUNY empowerment plan, also affected CUNY, of course. Would you be willing to do that? I mean, how aggressive would you be saying, I do not think we should have, I don't know, tax and fee increases, and I will not vote for a budget that does that, and then you can hold up the whole process indefinitely? Well,
obviously we bring our own, feelings and policies to the table. But I think at some point, if we're ever to get anything done in this state from the state Senate, there has to be compromise, and I think we all have to recognize that. And it'll depend upon, each issue. There are some core issues for me. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be the one person holding up, action for the entire state. I don't think that's appropriate. Compromise is going to be the order of the day. There's no question.
Do you think the Republicans are going to be able to compromise?
We'll see if they're in control. I think we'll see. They're going to have to just as much as the Democrats had to.
You reminded me, actually, before we started this interview, that you did not accept what we call Lulus here when you were at the council, and so you also did not accept a pay raise. So you are not going to be doing that similarly when you're in the Senate?
Well, in the city council, the council voted itself a 25% pay raise. Albany can't do that. They have to vote in one session and it becomes effective in the next session.
Probably not happening this year.
Right. But I would find that acceptable, because that allows you to go back to your constituency and say to them, am I worthy to be reelected under the new salary? I would find that acceptable. In terms of the Lulu, I didn't accept it in the city council because I don't think the leadership can control your vote. And that's what the Lulu does. It really isn't for extra work. And I'm not going to accept it in the state Senate either.
And in terms of outside income, do you have any?
I have no outside income.
You don't? Okay. How do you feel about disclosure of outside income by your colleagues?
Oh, I think it's absolutely essential.
Including, and you would vote for that kind of bill? Okay.
Absolutely.
Including your client list if you're an attorney, for example?
Yes, I think you should, because that's where the conflict of interest comes into play.
Indeed. Going forward, whether you're in the majority or the minority, you're going to have to pick a leader at some point. Are you prepared to vote for John Sampson? Now, we should say that the Senate Democrats spent $200,000 and change to help you get elected. It's not a lot, not the most they spent on a candidate. It's a lot. Will you support John Sampson?
Yes, I will. I've worked with him. He was one of the first persons in the state Senate, obviously, that I reached out to when I was considering running. And he and I have developed a relationship, and he actually likes my independence. And, so we've developed a working relationship, and I will support him for a leader.
Regardless, minority, majority, either way?
Regardless.
And the AEG scandal doesn't bother you, his role in that?
Well, there's a difference between, in my opinion, from something that may have been criminal as to poor judgment. And I haven't read the report. I think maybe some of the people that were involved in that issue that were mentioned in the report maybe just poor judgment.
Because it was referred, it was referred to the Manhattan
Well, let's
DA,
see what happens.
Okay.
Let's see what happens as part of that investigation.
And also, I have to ask, that mayoral run that you did in '09, was that just the preparation to run for Senate?
Absolutely not. Okay. I know Frank Padovan is telling people that.
I just got to ask.
No, I decided to follow the term limits law, even though the mayor in 29 and my colleagues in the city council overturned it. After having made that decision, I decided, well, what am I going to do? And I thought, I'll take that shot to make some real change in the city of New York. And I really liked the experience. And considering the fact that we raised very little money, we never got matching funds, that we got 21% of the votes citywide when nobody thought we could even get on the ballot in the first place, I thought that said something.
In a primary against an African American, so that's significant. Well, I want to thank you very much for joining us.
It's my
Welcome
pleasure.
to Albany, Tony Avella, Senator-elect from Queens.
Thank you.